What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Welcome back to Top Bins, the show bringing you all the action from the Premier League and SerieA, England and Italy. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how are you?
We're good. I'm in my Grinch era, but not because I hate the Christmas season, just because I'm wearing green. Christmas is approaching us. And this is the final show that we will be recording prior to Christmas. So, Merry Christmas.
Wow, dude, that's really good.
It's very insightful, right? Merry Christmas to all the listeners that celebrate, to all the viewers on YouTube that celebrate. Just trying to say my nice little words. Happy Hanukkah to those listeners who celebrate too. Hanukkah's been going on, so just in the holiday spirit, very festive, Matthew.
Dude, are you trying to hit a word count? What is going on? By the way, green is very much a Christmas color. It is there are two Christmas colors pretty much, red and green. I don't think it makes you a Grinch for rocking the green. Is your first show, by the way, as a married man. So off the top, does that feel any different? Any change in your life at all?
What's a little sad is I don't have my ring on. I accidentally left it in the little ring dish that we have by the sink after doing the dishes, and I haven't put it back on. So,
well, I think you're being responsible. I think that's fair. I think that was a pretty responsible choice. So I'm gonna say that's okay.
Hey man, listen, married life, it's nice. I've been living with my wife for a few years already, so this is the title change, and just. I will say though, now, when you make that commitment and you make that promise, you do feel like a little more obligated to like make sure you keep up with things like, cause I can get lazy just like anybody else around the house, but there's a little extra thing like knocking in my head, like, damn, like I made this promise to this beautiful woman. I kind of just have to, kick my ass into gear, be a real adult.
Yeah, there definitely is a component for that. I'm wondering for you because you also did what me and my wife did, where we took like a little a mini trip.
Yeah.
When was the first time you called your wife to a stranger? Because for me, it was on the way to our mini moon. We stopped for like gas and used the bathroom, and the lady asked if I need help. I said, "Oh no, I'm just waiting for my wife." And it was the first time I had really said that. Was there a time that it happened to you, and was it just as jarring as it was? I did
it on the wedding night. So
wedding night's a little different, but yeah. Let me hear.
Doesn't it feel so powerful to say that statement? Because I've been in the bouncer's position when you kick everybody out at the bar at the end of the night, right? So like the people at Landmark, they're crazy. They're very aggressive with it. The lights came on, the music stopped, and they're all like, "Yo, get out! Come on, we're closed. You gotta get out!" They're pushing everybody out, right? So Monica has to go use the bathroom. So I go out the door, like I'm not going to give the bouncers a hard time, but I'm waiting like right outside the door, and they're starting to push everybody out, and they look at me like this big ass dude. He looks me straight in the face and goes, "Yo, you got to get moving. You got to go home." I'm like, "Yo, I'm waiting for my wife. She's in the bathroom." And he's like, "Oh, you're waiting for your wife? Okay. You can stay there." I'm like, yeah, bitch. Like, can't tell me nothing. I'm not going anywhere without her. It's very powerful. It's very convincing to people like that because, as a bouncer, people tell you everything to try to, not have to move from where they're standing when you're trying to kick them out, but like you hear somebody who doesn't seem too drunk, maybe not, but like,
yeah, brother, I'm going to tell you seem pretty drunk. I'm going to stop you right there.
But to be able to like look them straight in the eye, just be like, yeah, I'm waiting for my wife. Not I'm waiting for my girlfriend. I'm waiting for, it's like, I'm waiting for my wife. All right, you can stay there. When she gets out, I know you're leaving. So, yeah, it feels good to be able to say it. It's nice.
It is a powerful thing to invoke. My wife, like it is. There's an added power You're right to when you say that. So congratulations, obviously.
Thanks,
Happy
man.
to have you back on the show. Let's talk a little bit about this weekend's action because we have quite a bit. First, starting in England, Bournemouth versus Luton was postponed. They're going to fully replay this game. It was 1-1 at the time in the 40th minute when Luton captain Lockyer collapsed on the pitch. This is actually the second time he's done this this past year. Did it in the playoffs for the championship. Had surgery afterwards. Don't know if, like, obviously can't speculate on this. Like, we don't know for sure if those events are necessarily linked. I think it's reasonable to assume they might be. He seems like he's in stable condition, doing okay. We don't know what his future is as a player, right? But we've seen players have issues. Daley Blind, Christian Eriksen, I think, is probably the most notable one because of what happened to him and kind of the high-profile nature of it happening at the Euros. There have been players that have had heart issues that have continued on to play. Obviously, it's scary when you've had 2 in a year, and this one was similar to Eriksen, where you have cardiac arrest on the field, and that's always really, really scary. So I'm glad he's okay. That's the most important thing. But just in case people weren't aware of what happened in that situation, or if that game's going to be played, it is going to be fully replayed now, and so you're going to start back from the first minute 0-0, and it's going to be like a brand new game. But yeah, just a very, very bizarre weekend in that respect. And obviously I hope that he continues to recover, and it'd be great to see him play again, but who knows, when you play, that's all in time. I think some of the bigger news is in terms of like the table and results. City draw again at home to Crystal Palace. It is a 95th minute penalty from Michael Olise that makes it 2-2. Crystal Palace is just a team that over the past few years has found a way to get results against Manchester City. This used to be the Andros Townsend, maybe yearly banger.
Worldy.
Yeah. That used to be kind of the nature of this game. But this time it's something that we've hit on, and I think something people are becoming more aware to, that City have had a problem with control this year, and especially defensively. I think letting in, sort of like losing their grip on games. And Jack Grealish just talked about how hard it's been mentally, coming off a treble-winning season, to kind of find that same fire, find that same edge. I think you're really seeing that now. All that said, we've seen them, go into this period and not be top of the table and still win the title. That is totally – it happened literally last year, where it seems like Arsenal are probably going to be top on Christmas Day like they were last season. City still ended up winning the title. Don't know that that's going to be the case this year, but it does feel like City, there's a little bit of a different nature to them. Part of that is injuries too. They didn't have Haaland over the weekend. We also talked about that too before. We didn't do a show last week because you were away, but we talked about how Haaland's ankle injury maybe a little worse than being let on. It's been kind of nagging him for over a month now. And, it's finally sort of taken a little bit of a break. It's funny the way the news broke with that. I don't know if you saw this. People will track like family members of like fantasy Premier League teams or like even players themselves to see who they sell or who they brought in. Well, apparently Holling's dad and his like brother and a few other people within his like immediate circle sold him in fantasy Premier League. So that's how people were kind of like clued into the fact that Haaland was definitely going to be missing at least last week and maybe a little bit more time too. So, listen, in this modern age, you have to adapt and find new ways.
This is even, not even totally soccer related. It is related to this though. It's like, geez, the sports fandom, how obsessive some people can now become because of the, minor intricate details that you can do on the internet to get the information you want. Like who would ever think like, oh, let me follow the fantasy Premier League teams of this player's family so I can get news on my favorite team's striker. Like
you gotta adapt.
Dude,
we're in a constantly evolving social world. You have to find an edge. Like it's
no wonder everybody gets this viewed at some point on the internet nowadays. With the way that people can find stuff, it's crazy.
Well, it's like the tracking the planes. This is, I think, more common in Europeans. It's something we started seeing.
Tracking the planes, yeah.
something we started to see a little bit more in American sports. But like this has been a thing like for years, like since I've been a fan of like people tracking planes and being like tracking like limo services or like van services, like camping outside of like training complexes to get a sneak at someone coming in and signing. So it's something new. I think what this does for the table, obviously, is that it kind of opens up a gap for Arsenal to, they get the win over the weekend and now have sole ownership over top spot in the Premier League. Part of that was also because Liverpool drew the most predictable letdown game I've ever seen in my life. Was Liverpool drawing to Manchester United all week. It was about who's going to be missing. Bruno Fernandes gets suspended for the game. There's, Marcus Rashford comes out with norovirus and is like not going to be able to play. It actually probably would have been a positive for Liverpool if Marcus Rashford played the way he's performed this season. All these guys are going to be missing through injury or illness or whatever. And people talk about how terrible it's going to be. We're going to reenact the 7-0 from last year and make it, whatever. I could tell you from like Tuesday of last week, this is going to be such a letdown game. I'm surprised we didn't lose it. But Arsenal win over the weekend, claim top spot in the table. Aston Villa also now level on points with Liverpool. They get a pretty, I don't want to say controversial, but it was just like a very hectic game against Brentford. Some red cards in there. You had Ollie Watkins scoring against his former club. And I don't know if you saw this down, but kind of mean mugged. I guess a fan was kind of giving him a little bit more than just the usual abuse in the crowd. And mean mugged at him and did a very funny, like over the top laugh at him. That ended up kind of causing a scrap in the Brentford goal mouth. But it's tight is my point. That's where I'm going with this. It's really tight at the top of the table. City falling off a little bit. Again, I'm not willing to bury them yet in that sense. And it doesn't stop here because Liverpool and Arsenal play this weekend. So we're going to get some some action over this really congested like holiday fixture period. But you have Liverpool Arsenal this weekend. You've got Arsenal just a point ahead of both Liverpool and Aston Villa. It's again, we've talked about who's going to finally, kind of shape up in this title race. And we've talked all along about how it'll probably whittle down to two teams. And we felt like when Spurs fell away, this was kind of our opportunity where it's going to be maybe three, but Aston Villa have rejoined the race. It's been really fun at the top of the table in the Premier League this season.
Yeah, two teams a point behind first spot, so it does get very interesting. And I always love seeing when some teams can pull away by more than one game from City. City dropping down. They're 4 points behind Villa and Liverpool, 5 points behind first place. So it's getting rather entertaining. I mean, you've got some other teams kind of creeping up, but these top three teams are kind of just starting to run away with things. They're all in really good form. They're winning the majority of their games over the course of 5-6 games. So they're staying fairly consistent, and that's what you need in the Premier League is consistency. So when you're as consistent as Villa is at home, and you're as consistent as Arsenal and Liverpool, even with those frustrating draws or whatever they may get here and there, like majority of the time they're handling business and winning games. So it does get interesting. I think I'd rather have a 3-team race than a 4-team race. You can't ever count City out. It seems like every week we're talking about the latest injury report and who's sidelined. Kevin De Bruyne has been out. We'll probably see him by next month at some point. Haaland's out. They've had Kovacic out. They've had Mateus Nunes out. They've had numerous other guys. So, it seems like City fans are kind of just sitting back waiting and saying, oh, just wait. There's going to be that point. We're fully fit, and we're going to go on a tear. You better get your lead now, or else.
I would even say it's just City fans saying, I'm saying, it's like we've seen,
I mean, you've experienced it, so yeah, of course,
Right. We've seen time and time again that when it gets to late February, early March, this is a team that can win 12 or 13 straight. I don't know that they have that in them this year would be my biggest question is I think that there is just that little extra 1 or 2% that City have typically had over the last few years that has been missing so far. Maybe they recapture that. Right now, I think if you made me pick out of this 4, I think I would say Arsenal. I just think they're a team, and this was your preseason pick, and I didn't disagree with it. for the title, and that they've added they've added good depth to this team. Declan Rice has been such a revelation. I don't know that we've talked about him enough and how good he's been. And this is just a team that's just continually finding ways. Even that loss to Aston Villa, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I didn't think they were completely outplayed in that game. A few uncharacteristic misses by guys like Odegaard, but this is just a really, really, really good team. And I even talked about with them, potentially even Champions League stuff. We'll get to Champions League, that we had the knockout draw later, but this is a really, really good team. And I think Kai Havertz is shaping into a little bit of form so far now. And there's a lot I like about Arsenal. And I'm starting to believe that maybe this is a team that it's kind of breaking the right way for them. I don't really believe in Liverpool for title challengers. I think defensively, still some question marks for me. And I think the goal scoring has been weird. We're also going to lose Salah for at least 2 weeks due to AFCON. This is a team that's not been able to. I say this on a day that they beat West Ham 5-1 in the Carabao Cup, but has not gotten goals, a ton of goals, and especially has not gotten goals from forwards. It's really been midfield guys. Even today, a lot of midfield players chipping in. So that would be my concern there.
Do you think that we're seeing a shift in the power dynamics in the Premier League as of recent? I mean, it's been so many years since City began their run of dominance. It's sort of like what we've seen in SerieA recently. Ever since Juventus went on that 9-year tear of winning back to back 9 straight titles, now we're in a period where you don't see a repeat champion at all, right? And now granted minus a few years, it's been mainly City, or what we've talked about in the past, it's mainly been City, Liverpool, right? Now Arsenal's in the mix, Villa's in the mix, right? You could have a team like Spurs or United every so often, in a season, get in the mix. Are we starting to see that shift where there is a little more parity at the top again in the Premier League? And also, do you think that it's time for a change at City? I mean, I think that, when you look at a team that has a similar amount of points, sitting in a similar spot in the table in their respective league, you see a lot of different things being said about the coach than what's being said about Pep. The fans want Xavi out right now at Barcelona. They're performing just as well as City is this year. And City fans are oh, we've got the best in the world. And they have every right to say so.
I would say,
is it time to freshen things up at City?
If City fire Pep tomorrow, there's not a single club on the planet that is not
trying to get it
immediately calling him and figure out. I don't think his job would be in any kind of danger at all. I think as long as he wants the job, he has it. I think there are really only two.
Inter Miami comes calling. Messi's just let's run it back.
There's really only two managers that I think are pretty untouchable in the Premier League, and that is Klopp and Pep. They would just have to. They would have to choose to walk away. I think it would have to be their choice. It'd have to be really disastrous for either one of them to be gone. I just think they have not had that dominant edge that we're used to, and we've had a down year or two from City. But as far as parity, I would say no. I just think a few years ago we had a down City year, and that ended up being Liverpool's really dominant title, which got sort of cut in half because of the COVID season. But I just think we've had these seasons from them, and it's I think it's just the nature. They were going for their 4th straight title. No one's ever done that. It's just, and you're seeing why it's so hard. It's just to continue to come back every year, and that's what's been so impressive about City's every year coming back and having that energy. Sir Alex Ferguson talked a lot about how the season after the treble was one of the hardest seasons ever because it's so hard. Just think of that in the position of a manager, right? To kind of impress upon what is largely the same group. You might have a few new players, maybe a few guys left, but largely the same team to try and go out, and you can't do better than that. You could do.
How do you inspire your players to want more when they've already achieved everything? Yeah.
There's a mental edge that you just lose, and it's not your fault. There's a great stat. I don't remember the stat, but it's essentially tennis players when they win their first Grand Slam, and the drop off in performance after that, because you're constantly building towards just like one big goal. And when you get it, it is natural to kind of lay off the gas a little bit. You're not. It's so cliche and it's so like talk sports radio kind of stuff, but like this hunger, the desire, like those are hard things to just manifest. And when you've had so much success, that is the hardest part, is getting back to those levels, because like that is, you're overcoming something that is like defying human nature. Humans naturally just want to relax. Like we naturally want to just find a place and get like settled in and comfortable. And I think continually coming back every year and being the best is the opposite of that instinct. So that's been what's impressive. Speaking of being really good, Everton all of a sudden have just turned it on last few weeks, despite the point deduction. They would actually, funnily enough, they would be level on points with Brighton right now in ninth. Without the point deduction. So, and it would be above Chelsea. They leapfrog Nottingham Forest over the weekend. Nottingham Forest lost to Spurs. And as a result, Steve Cooper was fired. Nuno Espirito Santos is now taking over at Nottingham Forest.
Nice.
I think, his like time at Spurs, I think, is going to paint a lot of people's view of him, but he was very good at Wolves. Like, that was a very good team, and it wasn't exactly a team filled with like superstars. There were definitely good players in there. Like you had John Matinho before his legs had completely been lost to Father Time, and like a young Ruben Neves. So there was definitely some talent there, but those were good teams that were hard to play. And so I wonder with Nottingham Forest, they just have to be better than Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield, and kind of just survive this season. For Steve Cooper, it's a bummer. I liked him as a manager. He seemed to really like Nottingham Forest and working there, and it seems like the fans really liked him a lot too. Not a lot of like negative emotions I felt like coming from fans towards him. So it's a bummer, but it is a reality of the game. It seemed like at various times last year he could have lost his job, and finally the axe falls right before Christmas this year.
Hey, I mean, Nuno's gotten some teams to be really, really electric and play some good football in the Prem before. So I'd be excited to see what he can do with Everton. I mean, you probably feel a little bit differently about them than I do, but it's always nice.
Nottingham Forest, brother.
Oh, sorry, I zoned out for a second. Yeah. Nuno's with Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dice is at everything. Come on, brother.
Yeah.
That's your team. Everton is like your second club in England. What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about there. But yeah, we always love some good Dyche ball. No, I thought for some reason I zoned out for a quick second, and then I heard you talking about the manager leaving this. I'm like, oh damn, Sean Dyche is out. That's crazy. We always love some good Dyche ball, but we still got it. Thank God.
Unbelievable. Okay, Dom,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I wanted to look a little bit because we're getting to the end of the calendar year, and you always like to look back at some stuff. So I want to look back just a little bit this season. Just some of the players that have been performing really well in the Premier League. Dom, who would you say have been some of the most creative players in the Premier League so far this season?
What do you mean by creative? Like assists?
I'm so glad you asked, Tom. I'm going to be going by shot creating actions per 90. This I think is a good way of saying like who's really pivotal, who's involved in making shots, because shots have like goal creating actions are a little more like restrictive. These are essentially just dribbles or passes or fouls that you take that lead to shots from your teammates. That is the best way to look at this. So I think it's a really good all-encompassing way of maybe seeing who's really effective, who's making it happen for the team. Just think of guys in the Premier League this season, throw some names at me for who have the highest shot creating actions per 90.
Well, one of my first go-tos is a player that's not in the Premier League anymore. Like if Harry Kane was still in the league, he'd be a go-to guess for this, but he's obviously not in the league, so it can't be him. I want to take a wild left field guess and say like Jeremy Doku, but I don't even know if he may be on the list.
That's a pretty good guess because you're in the top 10, brother. Jeremy Doku is number 6 in the Premier League, 5.31 shot creating actions per 90. I think that the thing that's helping him a little bit is he doesn't have a lot of he's on a lower minutes than a lot of some of the other guys on the list, but he has been a dangerous and very threatening player when he's been on the pitch. Trust that instinct.
Marcus Rashford.
Marcus Rashford, no. Marcus Rashford was in dog shit this year. So,
well then, one of the Arsenal wingers, whether it's Saka or Martinelli.
Yeah, I understand your instinct going there, and you are correct on Saka. Martinelli, not in the top 10. He sits at number 18, but Bukayo Saka, number 4 in the Premier League, 5.5 shot creating actions.
Okay, so I have a question. What's the percentage of wingers on this list? Like if we're talking top 10.
I would say like players that could play in the wing. I would say we have some of these are listed as wingers, and they're not really. I'd say like maybe 3 or 4 out of these.
And the ones that are listed as wingers but not really wingers, are they more forwards or are they like midfielders?
I did not expect to be classifying guys.
All right, here. I got one. Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yes, number 3 on this list, 5.57 shot creating actions per 90. Trent Alexander-Arnold. Okay. You're missing your top 2 still. Number 1 is definitely a guy that I like.
Mo Salah.
No, it's. I mean, that was a fair guess given what I just said. But he was someone I liked in the preseason to go over his goal total. A new transfer, London-based club, shares a name with a former president of the United States of America, a much older president. James Madison sitting at number 1. Yes. A history teacher.
Oh, why didn't I think of him?
8.17.
He's the free kick. He's the free kick taker. He's the attacking mid. He's doing everything.
8.17 shot creating actions per 90. I'm going to spoil number 2 for you, Dom, just so you can see kind of the gap between him and everyone else. Bruno Fernandes is in number 2, 5.63 shot creating actions per 90. So almost a 3 kind of point difference there between those two. You also have in 5th Martin Odegaard, so 2 players from Arsenal in your top 5. Jeremy Doku sitting at number 6. Pascal Gross for Brighton sitting in 7th. Rodri for Manchester City in 8th here. Cole Palmer sitting at 9th for Chelsea. Maybe a little bit surprising how effective he's been. And Eberechi Eze for Crystal Palace sitting at number 10.
See, I don't know why my mind went away from number 10s and went straight to like wingers and fullbacks, Because I'm thinking, oh, well, these guys get crosses in. They like to dribble a lot. But, like, so do number 10s. You're talking Bruno. You're talking James Madison, Odegaard, Eze. Like, all of these guys play a more, like, advanced midfield role.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. This is not an easy exercise, Dom. And one more, we'll look at shots on target. These are your guys that are getting shots on target at a very regular rate. So we're going to be going by shots on target per 90 in the Premier League so far this season. Dom, who do you think is in that top 10? Just think of your best and most effective attackers. Who's getting a lot of volume?
Well, can we say matters just because, like...
Great guess, Dom. You've really taken a lot away from our first lesson. James Madison is sitting at number 6. He's got 1.53 shots on target per 90.
Heung-min Son.
He's sitting at number 9, 1.4 shots on target per 90. Not been a super high volume guy, although I guess if you're in the top 10.
Haaland
is a great guess, Dom. He's sitting at number 2, 1.81 shots on target per 90. I think number 1 would surprise you, and I think there's 2 names in this top 10 that I don't think you'll guess. There's actually 3 names in this top 10. I think
Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins is actually not in the top 10. He's sitting at 14 on the list, 1.27 shots on target per 90 for Ollie Watkins.
So we're talking a guy that gets a lot of shots. They need to see a lot of opportunities, whether they're getting the ball crossed to them or they're creating it. But it could be a guy in the midfield that likes to shoot a lot. So someone like an Odegaard, is he on the list?
Odegaard is not in the top 10. I'm actually scrolling, and I don't really even see Odegaard in. He's number 45.
What about Bernardo Silva?
No Bernardo Silva in our top 10.
Damn. Okay, so now I'm starting to hit that.
Number 1 is a striker. Funnily enough, also part of a preseason prediction thing we had, although it was a strike partner or his 1A or 1B, his 1A or 1B. This guy,
we're talking Callum Wilson?
We are talking Callum Wilson. He is number 1, 2.1 shots on target per 90. He does have, a little bit of a smaller sample size than maybe some other players. He doesn't have maybe like what you would expect typical starting, striker minutes. But yeah, when he's played, Osimhen has not been afraid to let it fly. There's a name on here that I'm surprised you haven't guessed yet, because he is just a chaotic guy that has a ton of XG and just doesn't seem to find the back of the net, but is always very willing to take a shot.
Ton of XG. Doesn't always score. Is it Rashford? No, it can't be Rashford, right? No.
I love this man.
Origi.
Darwin Núñez at number 3 on this list, 1.71 shots on target per 90. Number 4 is Antoine Semenyo of Bournemouth. Number 5, Evan Ferguson for Brighton, 1.57 shots on target per 90. James Maddison was at number 6. Gabriel Jesus at number 7. Richarlison for Spurs at 1.4, same as Heung-min Son. And Matheus Cunha sitting at number 10, just after Heung-min Son, also at 1.4 shots on target per 90. I would not have guessed Matheus Cunha, and I would not have guessed Semenyo. And really a lot of tries. You can give me a lot of cracks there, and I wouldn't have made that guess. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of look into who's been really attacking the goal so far this season in the Premier League. Let's move to Italy, Dom, because speaking of attacking the goal, Napoli beat Cagliari over the weekend. You sent me the clip, and it went pretty viral, I would say. Osimhen's assist, a little Globetrotters-esque, just kind of just letting it bounce. I don't know how many times he sort of like just keeps it within himself, and it bounces off his head. He sort of does a little juggle and then plays it in. Kvaratskhelia, by the way, almost ruins the move. Very, very fortunate redirect off the post.
How, man? He had the whole net to pick from.
He immediately, he kind of had like an initial reaction, like he missed it. His hands sort of gone up, his hands had sort of flew up, like he realized, like, I'm gonna have to make an apology here, and it kind of redirected very nicely for him. But yeah, it was another kind of outstanding Osimhen performance, but it was ruined, I think, later in the week because Napoli drop out of the Coppa Italia to Frosinone, who move on to the quarterfinals. It's a weird week for Napoli, but I did want to at least give them their due and their credit, for what was a great goal, a great moment so far in the season. I saw that he recreated it in training as well. So that was, I think personally, kind of fun for me. Just speaking about, Coppa Italia in general, Inter also lost today as well to Bologna, which kind of makes Coppa Italia really interesting because you have Bologna-Fiorentina right now, Frosinone awaiting the winner of Juventus and Salernitana, and Lazio awaiting the winner between Roma and Cremonese. You could have a Roma derby there in the quarterfinals. That'd be really interesting. Still Milan, Cagliari, and Atalanta Sassuolo to play. But, you've seen, a few of the bigger names already exit, the tournament. That, kind of feels like, there's some space for a Fiorentina who, have made it to a final a few times, or even a team like Milan that have had a little bit of a disappointing season, maybe in Atalanta. There's kind of room there. It's just going to be Juventus, isn't it? Is really what this is all building towards. But
don't say that. Ah, man, I want it to be an open year. I want it to, it's nice seeing that when the Coppa Italia is won by one of these other teams, especially an up-and-coming team. I wouldn't be surprised if Bologna makes a run. Like, not only is Thiago Motta one of the, the hottest, younger, managers in Europe. They've got some very quality players, and he was able to get a lot of quality from a lot of young players in that squad. Most notably, someone who I'm going to yield from saying right now, because you're going to be asking those same questions later on when we're talking SerieA. So I want to showcase my ball knowledge for that league. When you ask me the questions, I don't want to talk about him right now, but it's a very hot prospect coming out of the Bolognese team.
Yeah, it's everybody's favorite kind of pasta, and also everyone's favorite second club. You know, I've always said about Thiago Motta, he's your favorite midfielder's favorite midfielder, and he has done a really good job there so far. They've actually moved into top four.
They're in fourth.
Italy. And you know, we'll get to this when we talk about Champions League, but really, I think we can talk about that now. You know, coefficients are going to become a really important thing because the top two performing leagues get an additional position in next year's expanded Champions League format. So fifth in Italy could, you know, depending on how they perform in all the European competitions, could actually be a Champions League spot next season. So right now that would be Napoli, but that makes it, I think, all the more competitive as we kind of barrel towards. And just something to keep in mind, you know, as we play out these tournaments, it actually really matters now, you know, how deep these leagues and their teams go. England has an advantage because a lot of the teams aren't in, at risk of getting bounced in the first Europa League kind of cutoff. There's a few, you know, Italian teams, a few like, Portugal's had a pretty good run of it. So something to keep an eye on. Yeah, you already talked about it. We'll do, the same exercise we just did with the Premier League for SerieA so far. So who've been the most creative players in the league this year? We're doing the same thing, shot creating actions per 90 in SerieA. I gotta say some surprising names on this list. A few not so surprising, but a few surprising names.
I almost don't want to say it, but let me just throw Leao's name out there right now just to see if he's on the list, because he may not be, to be honest.
You don't have to hesitate, Dom. He's there. He's number 8, 4.75 shot creating actions per 90.
I have one other Milan player, but it's not going to be Teo Hernandez, although I feel like he could be on there. But Tijani Reinders, is he on there?
He is not. Teo Hernandez, by the way, too, sitting at number 40, 3.49 shot creating action, which isn't bad, but, you know, I think, yeah.
Hakan Çalhanoğlu.
No Hakan Çalhanoğlu in the top 10.
Is there an Inter player in the top 10?
There is an Inter player in the top 10. Think Teo Hernandez, but Inter.
Oh, DeMarco. Okay.
DeMarco is there, number 6, 4.95.
Berardi?
That's a good guess. He's sitting at number 11, so just outside the range. But good guess.
Is there a Bologna player in there?
There is not a Bologna player in the top 10. There's a man in the top 3.
Paulo Dybala?
Paulo Dybala is there. He's sitting at number 7, 4.83 shot creating actions per 90. There's a man sitting in the top 3. He was all the rage last year. He's had a little quieter of a year this year, but we just talked about him.
Just talked about him.
He nearly ruined a move for Victor Osimhen.
Oh, Kvicha.
Kvaratskhelia is sitting at number 3, 5.02 shot creating action per 90. Number 1 is surprising to me. I'll say that. It's a little bit of a surprise. Same team as Kvaratskhelia. There's another Neapolitan player. There's actually 2 other Neapolitan players in the top 10. But number 1 is also a Napoli player.
Di Lorenzo?
It is not.
Politano.
Politano is Matteo Politano. Not someone I really would have expected to see this high up on the list, but 6.63 shot creating actions per 90. Number 2 is interesting too. We were talking about young prospects. This is a guy that is on loan to this club, and I think has a very bright future ahead of him. It's a team also that we just talked about that advanced in the Coppa Italia in Frosinone.
He's on loan to Frosinone
from Juventus. Matthias Sule, 5.86 shot creating actions per 90. Lazar Samardzic from Udinese, sitting at 5, sitting in 4th place with 5 shot creating actions per 90. Remy Odin from Lecce, I would not have guessed that, honestly. DeMarco at 6, like we said, Dybala Leao, Zielinski sitting at number 9, and Koop Miners for Atalanta sitting at number 10. Those are some of your most creative players in the SerieA so far this season. And we'll do the same thing. Players, your most threatening attackers, shots on target per 90 leaders in SerieA. Not as many deep cuts on here, but
here's the moment we've all been waiting for. One of the most electric Bolognese players that we've seen in a long time. Is Zerke on that list?
He is not
really
in the top 10. He's sitting at number 21.
He's been electric for them.
Just a little over 1 shots on target per 90. But I guess, he just hasn't been high volume. But he has been good.
Okay, so we're talking shots. Lukaku.
No Lukaku in the top 10. He's at
Osimhen.
number 30. Osimhen, it's sitting at number 14.
Wow. Is Hakan on this one?
No Hakan in the top 10.
Wow. I'm doing awful.
This is a hard. Listen, this is a hard. This is not easy.
Leao. Is there a Milan winger on there, like a Pulisic?
There's actually no Milan player in the top 10. Pulisic is the highest Milan player at 16. Number 16 is 1.11, and Giroud is right behind him at spot 18. But Leao not high up on this list actually at all. He's sitting at number 47.
Thuram or Martinez?
Both of them are back-to-back in our top 10. Lautaro Martinez sitting at number 7, 1.41 shots on target per 90. Marcus Thuram sitting at 1.34. So they've been a really devastating duo, especially Martinez, who's been fantastic this season. So there's 2 of your top 10.
Vlahovic. No, probably
Vlahovic
not, right?
is at number 11, just misses out. He's technically tied with number 10. So he could have made this, but I don't know how they make the determination who gets higher. There's an Atalanta player, a Napoli player, a Fiorentina player, and a Sassuolo player.
Bonaventura.
No Bonaventura. There's a Roma player as well.
A
Roma player that I personally like quite a bit. The Sassuolo player, I think you would guess that.
I guess Domenico Berardi.
Domenico Berardi sitting at number 10, tied with Dusan Vlahovic, both of them with 1.25 shots on target per 90.
You said a Roma player that you like?
Yeah. He's a player that I've liked in Italian football for a little bit of time now. Had a bad year last year, but has had a much better goal-scoring season this year because it would be hard not to, based on how bad he was last season.
We've talked about him already?
We have not talked about him today.
Better goal-scoring this year than... I feel like once you say it, I'm gonna be like, "Oh,
look at my camera."
Il Gallo.
Andrea Ballatti sitting at number 9. Number 1 is a guy that we've talked about strangely quite a bit on this podcast. He's an Atalanta player, just transferred to Atalanta this past summer.
Is it my guy? My guy, Charles?
It is not your guy. I'm not being cruel to you. Although he did score over the weekend. So
not a striker.
He is a striker. This is a striker. He was
my guy.
We talked about him and Osimhen, and said that they both should stay in SerieA another year. And Osimhen did. This is Scamacca, 1.95 shots on target per 90. Definitely a little bit of a smaller sample size, which helps him out. But yeah, not surprising. There's one more guy that I think there's actually another Atalanta player, and there's another guy that I think you'll get. It's a Napoli player, not Kvaratskhelia and not Osimhen. So this is a guy that's filled in quite a bit across that front line. He's had definitely a good campaign so far, delivering on some promising talent.
Almas?
No.
Delivering. Oh, Raspadori.
Giacomo Raspadori sitting at number 3. Adamano Lookman at number 6 for
There's the
Atalanta.
Atalanta player, yep.
Number 2 is Lemek Banda for Lecce, 1.73 shots on target per 90. Raspadori's at number 3. Federico Bonazzoli for Hellas Verona at 1.51 shots on target per 90. I'm sorry, Federico, I was not familiar with their game like that. Nico Gonzalez at number 5 for Fiorentina. Lookman at 6, Martinez, Thuram, Andrea Bellotti, and Domenico Bardi round out our top 10. Good work, Dom. That was not an easy one. Just wanted to go through the Champions League matchups with you because we had our draw. Porto versus Arsenal. I will say this for Arsenal. It's a good omen to get Porto in your first round of the knockout stages. As someone that has had Porto a few times, it nice. Has a tendency to work out well. But Napoli versus Barcelona, this is a tough draw.
Both teams kind of having even than people want to think. You know, the weight that the name that Barcelona carries makes it seem like this is a very, you know, like offset, like unfavorable matchup for Napoli. I think it's very, very, very balanced.
Well, both are kind of having similar seasons, right? Like a little bit of a letdown from title-winning campaigns. So that's interesting. Inter versus Atletico. That's kind of a tough draw, I would say, for Inter. I'm not thrilled with that if I'm them. Lazio versus Bayern. We had this a few years ago when Lazio was in the Champions League. I think the last time, and it just ended up not going super well. Copenhagen versus Manchester City. Who saw that coming? I mean, honestly, like just of course. Copenhagen, a good team. I would have liked to have seen them drawn against a lot of other teams just because I think there could have been a competitive nature there, but it's hard to really see. Poor Real Sociedad top their group and end up with PSG as
don't count them out.
I won't count them out, but it's not favorable. PSV versus Dortmund, that's interesting. Dortmund could lose their manager. Seems like that might happen. You got to remember these games are all the way till February, so you know form and things like that could change, and injuries and all those things. But PSV have had like a historic season so far, and Leipzig versus Real Madrid. I think for me, Napoli Barcelona just kind of has to be the headliner there.
It is, yeah.
But PSG Sociedad I think could be a lot of fun, and PSV versus Dortmund is kind of your hipster matchup. And Europa League,
I like the Inter. I like the Inter Athletic matchup because Inter, which plays a very free-flowing, like very attacking, like kind of pedal to the metal type of style of play, has to play the terrorist ball that Simeone brings out every week and just sits in a low block and invites the pressure. And like they have the creative players up top to just hit the ball to and tell them like, go have fun. Like that's the Atletico Madrid way, and it can be very frustrating to teams. And a team like Inter, who plays more of like a 3-back, a quasi 3 or 2-back, you know, depending if Bastoni pushes up, could get Griezmann in one-on-one positions. And I think that if you were to put Griezmann versus Acerbi in a 1v1, I think that 8 or 9 times out of 10, Griezmann comes out of there with a goal, or at least a shot on target. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup right there between those two teams. I'm looking forward to that. Napoli versus Barcelona. And have you seen the memes about the Lazio Bayern matchup?
Yeah, we don't have to go there, but I think we can fill in the blanks on how those two might be connected in some ways. Europa League, Feyenoord and Roma, of course they did. Similar to how we all knew Manchester City was going to get Copenhagen. There's some weird magnetism between Feyenoord and Roma. This is obviously a replay of the Europa Conference League final, but they've played each other a few times in Europe over the last few years. It's usually been bad, actually, because the fans have been really terrible and destructive and violent. So hopefully we won't see that. But let's be real. We're probably going to see that. Milan versus Rennes as well. Interesting matchup for both teams. Not a bad draw for Milan, but a little bit of a hurdle, I would say, in this first it's technically the round of 32 in the Europa League. But
I mean, considering the speed bumps they're dealing with and the injuries that they're dealing with, it's a tough situation for Milan right now. So It would be nice to see them come out with a victory, but it's going to be tough with squad rotation and things like that, and
that's not
keeping
till
up a
February
consistent
too,
product. Yeah, so
Not
who
till
knows?
February.
Maybe more people will be hurt.
You're just really optimistic, and I love that about you. Looking ahead to this weekend, in Italy, we've got Roma versus Napoli. That's a great one. Very, very exciting. There, Bologna versus Atalanta. Kind of two teams fighting it out for Europe to look forward to. And then that's kind of it for this weekend as far as big ones. We don't have our big normally SerieA has like a longer break. Don't have that this season, so we're not gonna just have the Premier League to focus on after kind of these holiday fixtures. So that's kind of a nice thing. This weekend in England, Liverpool versus Arsenal has to be the big one. Two teams at the top of the table going at it. Always a good one. That's I think at Anfield as well. So pretty electric game. Let's be real. That one's got a lot riding on it. Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. Aston Villa could technically go into the weekend top of the table if they win on Friday evening. So, West Ham versus Manchester United as well. The David Moyes derby, as it was. So some exciting stuff. Hope everyone has a nice. I always say holiday. I know everyone gets mad now. It's Christmas or whatever. Christmas Eve is a separate day to me than Christmas, so it's like the holidays. And then there's New Year's Eve and all that stuff. So I hope everyone has.
There's a lot of different holidays going on within this 2.5 week time span. So,
it's just a general sense of I hope you have a nice time. I hope, whatever. I hope you hang out with family. I hope you have some good drinks, get good gifts, give good gifts, all of it. Eat good food. We'll be back to wrap it all up, which is the opposite of what you typically do. You're normally unwrapping this time of year. Tom, anything to say before we get out of here?
First off, Matt, I'd like to thank you for being a part of my wedding. And it was a great time. We had a great time. You were a big help during the day. KB behind the boards, thank you for being at the wedding. Underground Sports crew had a good time. So, yeah, man, everybody enjoy your holidays. Stay safe. Don't do anything stupid like drinking and driving. Don't do that kind of stuff, man. Be responsible. And we'll be back at it, man. Just keep on pushing.
I like that turned from advice to motivation.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta wake up early and you know what I mean? Like, just gotta do it. You gotta get to it. Get to that money,
I don't have to worry about you becoming one of those alpha podcasters because you just do not have that. You do not have that down just yet.
Sometimes life, it's what I mean. But more times than not, type shit like.
That video of like the kid. He's like, "Do you ever dream that you could do you could?" That was you just now. We'll see you next time, everyone. Peace.
Bye. Hello.